the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. How the Egyptian protests have created new difficulties for Israel with its Arab neighbors, getting in touch with Chinese Jews, why Justin Bieber sings a Jewish prayer before every concert, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. In all the coverage of the Middle East, much attention is often paid to the so-called Arab Street. Recent changes in Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and the West Bank are seen in part as a response by Arab governments to do more to represent the Arab Street, and taken together, the overall response does seem to be one that puts more heat on Israel. In the Palestinian territories, the leadership of the Palestinian Authority that governs the West Bank, Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, has been speaking out about how the change in Egypt, with President Hosni Mubarak stepping down after more than 30 years, affects the Palestinian situation. While many have commented on the easy peace between Israel and a Mubarak-led Egypt, few have talked about how the recently departed Egyptian leader interacted with Palestinian leadership. According to Fayyad, Mubarak was a strong ally of the Palestinian Authority. In an interview with Slate, Fayyad was asked, "Isn't Egypt under Mubarak the strongest backer of the Palestinian Authority?" Fayyad answered, "They have definitely been in that corner, Mubarak and Egypt historically." Meantime, Fayyad continues to assert that his push for Palestinian statehood will bring results, and has declared that he will continue to seek a vote at the United Nations to recognize Palestinian statehood, and is hoping to see Palestinian statehood achieved by the end of this year. In an interview with Arabic newspaper Al Hayat, Fayyad compared the Palestinian situation to that of the South Sudanese, saying that the United Nations could not maintain a moral consistency in recognizing South Sudan's statehood, but not Palestinian statehood. 5 South American countries in the past 3 months have declared they recognize a Palestinian state within 1967 borders: Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Chile. One could see this rhetoric from Fayyad as indicating that the government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has lost some of the power of its previous negotiating position. Avoiding a unilateral declaration of statehood by the Palestinians has been a declared goal of Netanyahu's, which he's tried to avoid in the past by offering concessions. Now, the Netanyahu government is relatively silent, while the Palestinian Authority is saying it'll push forward alone. Another sign of change for Palestinians is the PA's recently announced hope to hold Palestinian elections this fall. However, Hamas, which governs Gaza, has said it won't allow elections in its territory. PA President Yasser Abed Rabo said this week the elections will go forward even if Hamas does not participate. Meantime, in Jordan and Lebanon, Israel is seeing an increase in heated rhetoric targeting the Jewish state. The new justice minister in Jordan, Hussein Majali, said, quote, "Israel is a terrorist state that will be destroyed," in an interview with a Jordanian newspaper. But how are Israelis and the larger Jewish community responding to news in Egypt? Not with much. The silence from Israeli and Jewish leaders that was common while protests in Tahrir Square were ongoing has largely persisted as an uncertain situation for Egyptian leadership continues despite Mubarak's departure. But while Israel is seeing a different kind of future with its Arab neighbors, here's a story on how China is reacting to Israel and the Jewish community, including the small Jewish community in China. Christian Needon has that story.
You can't get any further geographically from Israel than China, but the spiritual Jewish ties between the two countries are far closer than you might think. Yes, there is indeed a small native Chinese Jewish community in the city of Kaifeng, and 92Y's Center for Jewish Diversity hosted a talk this week by Kaifeng native Xu Lei, who opened by recalling the reaction of a U.S. customs official back during his first trip to New York.
And he asked, are you Jewish? I said, yes, I am Jewish. And this official just didn't say anything to me and immediately turned around to his colleague aside. Hey, this Chinese man is a Chinese Jew. So from this, no wonder, few people heard about, in Kaifeng, China, there are Jews.
Xu Lei then talked about what it was like growing up as a Chinese Jew.
My generation did not know anything about the Jewish practices, festivals, etc. But somehow, every Jewish family in Kaifeng, as I grew up, always the parents and grandparents tell their children and grandchildren that you are Jewish and you are from Israel. And these words are passed down from generation to generation for 1,000 years and never stop.
That's because back in the 11th century, a group of Jews migrated from Persia along the Silk Road, establishing themselves in the government sector of Kaifeng, which was then the Chinese capital, and forged a unique identity that would slowly wear away through the passage of time, intermarriage, and assimilation into wider Chinese culture.
In the 11th century, Jews who came to Kaifeng were about 1,000 members. And at its peak in the 18th century, so there were over 4,000 Jews in Kaifeng, this city alone, let alone members living in other Chinese cities. But somehow, to the present day, only this community in Kaifeng survived. Other Jewish communities, which used to be located in other Chinese cities such as Hangzhou, Gansu, Ningxia, etc., lost, disappeared, assimilated, gone. So only today, Kaifeng.
Kaifeng is currently home to around 500 Chinese people who consider themselves Jewish, and who are slowly trying to pick up Jewish traditions that have been lost, joining growing communities of foreign Jews living in China.
Jews from other countries can freely practice Judaism in China. Say in Shanghai, in Harbin, in Canton, there are different Jewish communities, including Chabad and also conservative Jewish communities. But these people, they are foreign citizens, they are not Chinese citizens. They can freely practice Judaism within their own houses of worship.
Since Chinese Jews are not officially recognized among the country's 55 official minority groups, which include Chinese Muslims, they fall under the majority Han ethnic group. Xu Lei said this led to a fusion of Jewish and Chinese tradition.
For example, Passover, we also eat matzah. We cooked matzah. We call it unleavened cakes. It's like a regular cake in China, but it's unleavened. Okay, just celebrate it in our own way. And because it is in China, somehow, for example, if one wants to get kosher food, yes, he can, but somehow he needs to transport the food, a long way from Shanghai or Beijing, from those expat Jewish communities. It's impossible. So we just do it in our own way.
To hear more about the Jews of Kaifeng, China, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Finally, 2 items from popular culture. Here at the Jewish Channel, we often get asked if teen pop star Justin Bieber is Jewish, and the answer is no, he's an evangelical Christian. But he's an evangelical Christian with an interesting Jewish twist. He sings the traditional Jewish prayer of the Shema before every one of his concerts. This fact is brought to light by the Jewlicious blog, where it's noted that you can see Bieber saying the prayer in a new documentary about him, Never Say Never, which opened in U.S. theaters last week. The Jewlicious post explores the history of the Shema tradition for Bieber and finds it originates, stereotypically enough, with a Jewish manager. Scott Braun is credited with discovering Bieber and helping him build his following. Bieber started a tradition to gather in a prayer circle before concerts, which his mother would conclude, "In Jesus' name, Amen." Braun and Bieber's also Jewish musical director, Dan Cantor, started singing the Shema in the circle as well. At the third prayer circle, Jewlicious reports, Braun was surprised when Bieber started singing the Shema as well, saying that he had researched the prayer online and memorized it. Bieber continues to sing the Shema before he goes on stage. The other pop cultural story is less of a warm-hearted look at how music and the Jewish tradition intersect. We often see weird, unusual, or plainly bad videos from various Jewish organizations posted online, but we've never seen anything like this. Ukrainian Jewish oligarchs are obtaining significant power in the ranks of European Jewish leadership, but apparently not for their discretion. In this video made for Jewish Ukrainian oligarch Alexander Sasha Malamud's 50th birthday, several of his fellow Ukrainian Jewish oligarchs created this satirical cover of Lady Gaga's Bad Romance, in which they dance, bare their behinds, drip ketchup and vodka on sex dolls, and dance in traditional Jewish prayer shawls and skull caps while declaring, "We are heretics," and pouring vodka from bottles labeled Jewish Standard. One of the participants in the video is actually a member of the Ukrainian parliament and held a wedding for his daughter in Israel last week. If you're interested in seeing the entire video, you can see it on our news blog at newsdesk.tjctv.com. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: IO Optimum Cable Channel 291, Time Warner Cable Channel 528, RCN Channel 268, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and Cox Cable Channel 1. For more information, visit tjctv.com.